go all in for Myles Garrett.
Yeah, so the timing of the Browns being the team to be like, hey, why don't we let teams trade picks up to 5 years in the future, 1 week, and then the very next week, redoing Myles Garrett's deal that achieves absolutely nothing other than making him more tradable. Right. Got the Brian Windhorst fingers in me going, why would they do that? And so I do think it now is a legitimate conversation to be had. I also think people need to understand trading for Myles Garrett will cost you 3 first-round picks. If trading for Max Crosby was going to cost you 2, and one of them was a good one, the 14th pick of the draft is not the same as the 30th pick of the draft. If somebody, so a team, I'll give as a for instance, Dallas, that has 2 first-round picks this year, neither of which are amazing, but 2 first-round picks this year, and the worst of their pick or Green Bay's pick next year, I think that's the table stakes for trading for 30-year-old Myles Garrett.
All 3.
Or 2 of those 3 plus 1 further down the road. Like, if Max Crosby, who's a worse player with more injury questions, around the same age,
though.
barely.
Year and a half. He's 28. Garrett's 30.
That's right. Crosby will be 29 when the season starts, but so a year and a half. And Garrett's coming off the best year of his career. I think it's 3 firsts.
Man, wow.
So I think it's got to be a team that truly has reason to believe he's the final piece to winning the Super Bowl, which he's one of the greatest defensive players ever, coming off the best season of his career. He might be the final piece to winning a Super Bowl. I wouldn't do it if I were Dallas, but I would understand that they are the type of team that might. And I think it's a short list of teams that'd be willing to do that.
3 firsts that's probably too high. I mean, maybe, like you said, do you want to give one 4 or 5 years down the line? But I'm torn because there's a part of me that wants to be greedy. If there was, Adam Schefter said, the Ravens, when they were going to trade for Max Crosby, were also talking to Trey Hendrickson. If they went out and here's what I do if I'm the Ravens. Look, the talk is they're going to use that 14th pick on an offensive lineman, which they do need. They need offensive linemen. That's why I'm torn. But if they feel like they can get their offensive line built up without needing their first pick this year, first I go to the Browns with the offer I did for Crosby. First this year, first next year. I mean, that's still a lot. And again, I'd be like, look, he's 30. He's 30 years old. He's not even still in his 20s. And I would try to push that, but I'd love for the Ravens to get him, and hopefully they're at least considering doing so.
We're up against the break, but you still view Max Crosby's asking price as a benchmark.
It wasn't an asking price. It was agreed upon.
I know, but it was voided, so I almost don't say, well, here's the benchmark. We didn't go through with it.
Okay, that's fine, but Trent McDuffie went for a 1st, a 4th, a 5th, and a 6th. There's who was Jalen Waddle just went for a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th.
I just feel like 2 firsts is still
2 firsts is
still a lot, and they're right like this year.
2 firsts is not enough for Myles Garrett.
This is what makes these types of conversations so intriguing. They're delicate because you can argue that yes, Myles Garrett is worth 3 first-round picks, and that might be his actual value, but that doesn't mean you should pull the trigger. We saw this with the Lamar Jackson trade rumors years ago when people were saying, trade 3 firsts for Lamar. It's complicated when you do something like that because Lamar is obviously worth that price, but then you have to part with those 3 first-round selections and immediately hand Lamar Jackson a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars. That damages you significantly because when you're paying that kind of money, you need those first-round picks. You need them. You need them. You need them. Unless you're in a very unique position as a franchise where everything is perfectly aligned and you don't need to hit on first-rounders, but come on, that's pretty rare. So with a Myles Garrett situation here, it's interesting because it's a massive amount of draft capital. If you were in a situation, let's say the Rams this offseason, and they've obviously already made some of these moves, but if they genuinely felt, we are one Myles Garrett away from winning it all. If we had him getting after the quarterback, we'd be golden. It would be over. Then yes, you could argue that a team in that exact scenario can go make that trade because they had 2 firsts and then next year's first, and they're like, okay, boom. they're good there. If you're talking about another team like the Dallas Cowboys, or the Philadelphia Eagles, or even the Ravens, you're kind of at a point where you're wondering, do I think a Myles Garrett makes a team like the Dallas Cowboys significantly better? Of course. This is what I said about the Max Crosby trade. You add a player like that to your roster, you're going to improve. You're absolutely going to be better. But to me, the way I look at it personally, a move like this has to be the move that truly positions you to win a championship. Not just to be competitive. Not just to be better than you were last year. It has to be the absolute, bona fide difference maker that puts you over the top to win it all. Anything less than that, and you're really crippling your ability to continue making your roster work financially and from a longevity standpoint. Especially now when you're talking about first-round picks, depending on how it's structured. If we're talking about 3 firsts and you're a team like the Dallas Cowboys, you're giving up 2 firsts right now and then your first next year, even if it's a late pick, the 30th pick or whatever, you're still surrendering 3 completely different players also on slightly different timelines. Those players on rookie contracts really help you manipulate the cap, add players in free agency, whatever the case may be. Combined with the fact that you're also now paying Myles Garrett a massive amount of money. So it makes it incredibly complicated, incredibly complex. That's why a team like the Rams, to me, I look at them as the kind of franchise that could possibly do something like that because you know without a shadow of a doubt that if your team is good enough, you're going to be there. You're going to be competitive. And if you add a difference maker like Myles Garrett, any of the issues you might face with that move and foregoing the picks, it doesn't matter. Especially when you're looking at the timeline of Matthew Stafford. You're baking into the idea that, hey, we're going to try to win a Super Bowl. And after we win that Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford retires. It's totally okay if we're a bit of a mess for the next couple of years. No one's going to, the fans aren't going to care. The media's not going to care. The coaches, everyone's just going to understand the way it goes, right? So there are no problems with that. I'm struggling to see a team that's in a position to make that type of move right now. A team that can mortgage their future and take that level of risk, combined with the fact that you could truly feel you were right there from winning it all. Right there. So yeah. I mean, I still stand by when you look at a team like the Ravens, yes, having a great defense, having an elite defense is great. But I'm still in the camp that Lamar Jackson is your quarterback. You have to be able to build a team around him and have the right coaching staff to get the best version of him with 3 minutes to go in the 4th quarter in January. Don't get me wrong, having a great defense goes a long way. But his defense only gave up 17 points against the Chiefs in 2023. His defense did enough in 2024 against the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs scored more points. So it's not like the defense hasn't hurt them in the past, because it has, but it hasn't been their Achilles heel. This isn't the Cincinnati Bengals type situation or the Buffalo Bills type situation. Or even the Los Angeles Rams. That's not the situation here. So if you're making all these massive moves, I still favor that it should be in service of ultimately bringing out the absolute best, most resilient, most dominant, most clutch version of this offense and Lamar Jackson. So a move like this, if you're really going to trade 3 firsts, and if that's the actual value, how many teams are legitimately in a position to make a move like that where it truly matters right now? And is that risk worth it? That's why to me right now, and I'm sure there are a couple other teams I'm just not thinking about, but to me right now, that feels like the Los Angeles Rams. And they've already kind of used that ammunition. I understand Nick saying that the Cowboys are in a position to do it. I'm trying to think, we obviously know that the Ravens were willing to trade 2 picks. Okay, that's interesting. But now that they also signed Tre'Davious White, the way the money would have to work, I don't know. I'm not going to try to figure all that out. The Eagles, I don't know how necessary that is at this moment in time. And a team like the Buffalo Bills, it's thought-provoking for them, but I'm still looking at their offense being problematic. I don't know. If you make it 2 firsts, it's a different conversation. 3 firsts? I don't know. I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Myles Garrett and this idea that sometimes these players are worth the asking price, but does that mean you should still pay it? Right? Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.